The night was unnaturally quiet. No crickets, no rustling of leaves, only the faint hum of machines from the abandoned factory where Kylian sometimes wandered to escape the noise of his own thoughts. He had been restless that evening, drawn to the place without knowing why. Then the ground trembled. A deep, vibrating shock wave pulsed through the steel floor under his boots. Dust rained from the ceiling, and Kylian's heart stuttered as if the earth itself had awakened. He spun, searching the shadows. The silence that followed was heavier than the quake itself. Ominous, suffocating. And then, she appeared. From the jagged wreckage of twisted metal, a figure emerged. Towering in presence, though not in height, her body carried a weight that demanded attention. Green skin shimmered under the pale moonlight, filtering through the broken roof. Scars of battle etched across her arms. Armor clung to her curves like a second skin, dented and scorched by impacts not of this world. Kylian froze. His first thought was that he was dreaming. His second was that he wasn't going to live through the night. The alien woman's breathing was heavy, almost a growl, her chest rising and falling with a rhythm that spoke of exhaustion and fury. Her eyes locked onto him, glowing faintly like twin embers, filled with something primal. Before Kylian could move, she closed the distance in a blur. He stumbled back, but she was faster. With one powerful motion, she slammed him onto the cold steel floor. The impact knocked the breath out of him, his lungs burning as he gasped for air. Pinned beneath her, he felt the full force of her weight. Every one of her 330 pounds pressing down like an unmovable mountain. His arms strained against her grip, but she didn't budge. The smell of scorched metal and alien skin filled his senses. Her face hovered inches from his, her lips curling into something between a snarl and a cruel smile. When she finally spoke, her voice was deep, sharp, and laced with contempt. "I'll crush you, human!" The words echoed like thunder in the cavernous hall, striking Kylian harder than her physical hold ever could. He felt his pulse hammer in his neck, fear colliding with something he couldn't explain. Something closer to awe. Her strength was terrifying. But what unsettled him more was the fire in her eyes. This wasn't just violence. There was something else burning there. Something personal. Kylian tried to push her off, but it was useless. She pressed harder, reminding him that resistance was laughable. His ribs ached, his muscles screamed, and yet he found himself staring back at her, unable to look away. The alien tilted her head, studying him like a predator toying with prey. But beneath the raw aggression, he caught a flicker of hesitation. For just a fraction of a second, her hand trembled. Was it restraint? Curiosity? He couldn't tell. The air between them grew hot, thick with tension. Kylian's fear sharpened into something stranger, something he dared not name. Her breath touched his cheek, warm and steady, and in that moment, he understood two things. First, this creature was no mindless beast. She was intelligent, deliberate, dangerous in ways beyond brute force. Second, this was only the beginning, because if she truly wanted him dead, he would already be gone. The factory seemed to vanish around them, the whole world shrinking to the space where her body pressed against his. His every thought, every instinct screamed to survive, yet some deeper voice whispered that survival meant more than just escaping her grip. "Who are you?" he finally rasped, forcing the words past his constricted chest. The alien narrowed her eyes. For a heartbeat, silence stretched between them, electric and unbearable. Then she leaned closer, her forehead almost brushing his, her voice low and dangerous. "I am Eshara, and you, human, belong to me now." The line sliced through him like a Kylian lay still beneath her, chest heaving, mind racing. His body screamed at him to fight back, but some instinct warned him. This was not a battle he could win with strength. Every ounce of her pressed into him like the weight of another planet. His survival depended on something else, something he had yet to discover. Eshara's burning gaze lingered on him. She didn't strike. She didn't crush him, despite her words. Instead, she studied his face, as if searching for something hidden behind his frightened eyes. Her breathing slowed, and the fury etched into her features began to soften into something conflicted. Then as suddenly as she had pinned him, she released her grip. The pressure lifted, leaving Kylian gasping for air, clutching his ribs. She didn't leave, though. She stood over him, towering in presence, though her height was not extraordinary. Her armor groaned as she shifted her weight, her 330-pound frame still casting a shadow over him. For the first time, he saw her fully. Her skin was smooth but battle-worn, a deep jade green that shimmered faintly in the factory's dying lights. Her hair, dark and heavy, clung to her shoulders in tangled strands, and her eyes, those burning embers, seemed to carry both pain and pride. Kylian forced himself to speak. "Eshara, why are you here?" The alien's lips tightened. She tilted her head as if tasting the question before answering. "My ship, broken. Enemy chased me across your skies. I fell here." Kylian blinked, trying to process her words. He glanced around the factory ruins, and in the distance, through a collapsed wall, he finally noticed the wreck, an otherworldly craft, scorched black, wedged into the earth like a dagger. Sparks still hissed from its edges, the smell of ozone thick in the air. "You crashed," he muttered. "You're stranded." Her eyes narrowed, sharp and unyielding. "I am not weak. I will not beg." Kylian almost laughed despite himself. The way she spoke, heavy with pride, reminded him of warriors from ancient tales. But there was something human about her, too. Her refusal to show vulnerability, even while stranded, even while hurt. "What do you want from me, then?" he asked cautiously. For the first time, her gaze broke away. She scanned the factory, the broken machinery, the shattered beams, and then looked back at him. "You found me," she said flatly. "That makes you responsible." Kylian's heart thudded. Responsible for what? For you. Her silence was answer enough. The two of them stood in the wreckage of two worlds, his ordinary human life and her shattered alien destiny, colliding in a way neither had expected. The air crackled with unspoken tension. Every instinct told Kylian to run, to leave the strange creature behind. Yet something in her presence held him there, rooted to the spot. He noticed her armor up close now, scratched and broken in places, with jagged holes that revealed glimpses of her skin. She wasn't invincible. She was wounded, hiding her pain behind that steel-hard stare. And he realized something else. She needed him, not for strength, not for power, but for something she didn't want to admit. Guidance, shelter, trust. Kylian swallowed, forcing calm into his voice. "If you stay here, others will find you. Soldiers, scientists. They won't care who you are. They'll cut you open just to see how you work." Her eyes flickered, fear quickly buried under defiance. "Let them try." But Kylian saw the truth in that flicker. For all her might, for all her pride, she was stranded on a world not her own, and the thought of being hunted terrified her. He took a small step closer, careful not to trigger her aggression again. "Then stay hidden, with me, until we figure something out." Eshara's brow furrowed, her jaw clenched as if he'd insulted her. But beneath that armor of pride, hesitation lingered. For the nights that followed were unlike anything Kylian had ever known. Eshara remained in the abandoned factory, her broken ship hidden beneath sheets of scrap metal and shadows. Kylian came back again and again, though he could never explain why. Maybe it was duty, maybe it was madness, or maybe it was the way her presence clung to his thoughts like smoke he couldn't breathe out. By day she was restless. He often caught her pacing the cracked concrete, her heavy footsteps echoing through the hollow halls. Her movements were sharp, purposeful, always ready for battle. Yet in those unguarded moments, when she thought he wasn't looking, her shoulders sagged, her breathing slowed, and he could see the weight of exile pressing down on her far heavier than her body ever had. Kylian brought her food, awkwardly carrying grocery bags into the ruins. At first she eyed every item with suspicion, sniffing at fruit, poking at bread, refusing anything that wasn't dense or raw. But eventually she ate, and when she did, there was something almost human in the way she closed her eyes, savoring a simple taste. "Strange world," she muttered one night between bites, crumbs on her lips. "Too soft, too fragile." Kylian smirked. Funny, coming from someone who crashed into it like a wrecking ball. Her eyes snapped to him, sharp as daggers. For a moment he thought he'd gone too far. But then, unexpectedly, her lips curled into the faintest smile. A dangerous one, but real. That smile haunted him for days. The tension between them thickened with every hour. Eshara had a way of filling a room, not just with her weight, but with her presence. When she stood close, the air felt charged, heavy, as though the walls themselves bent toward her. He tried to look away, tried to keep distance, but found himself drawn back to her again and again. One evening, after the rain had hammered the factory roof for hours, he found her sitting alone near the wreckage of her ship. She wasn't armored. Instead, she wore the underlayer of her battlesuit. Dark fabric stretched across her heavy frame, clinging in ways that made his throat dry. The dim light shimmered across the curves of her form, revealing softness he hadn't expected from a warrior. She noticed his stare. Her voice was low, almost teasing. "Does my weight disturb you?" Kylian's breath caught. He shook his head too quickly. "Number, not at all." Her eyes narrowed, testing him. "Most of your kind would run. Weak men, afraid of what is stronger than them." Kylian swallowed, forcing himself to meet her gaze. "I'm not afraid." That was a lie. He was terrified. But fear wasn't the whole story anymore. What he felt now was sharper, stranger. His pulse quickened, not just from danger, but from something dangerously close to desire. Eshara tilted her head, studying him again, the same way she had studied him the night she first pinned him. The days blurred into nights, and the line between survival and something far more dangerous began to fade. Kylian told himself he was only staying close to Eshara out of necessity, that helping her meant protecting Earth from what others might do if they found her. But each time he left the factory, he felt an ache in his chest, a pull drawing him back. And when he returned, she was always waiting. Eshara had changed since that first violent encounter. Her eyes still burned, her presence still pressed heavy on him, but there was a shift in the way she moved around him now. The aggression hadn't vanished. It had sharpened, refined, like a blade no longer swung wildly, but deliberately aimed. Sometimes she would loom close without warning, her bulk shadowing his smaller frame, watching his reaction with an intensity that stole his breath. One evening, while the rain poured outside and thunder rolled across the horizon, Kylian worked quietly to patch a hole in her armor. She sat nearby, legs crossed, watching him. Her gaze never wavered, and every time he glanced up, she was still staring. Finally, he sighed. "What? Why are you looking at me like that?" Her lips curved into a slow, knowing smirk. "You do not look away. Most men would tremble, run, yet you stay." Kylian set down the tool, meeting her gaze. "Maybe I should run." Eshara leaned forward, her weight shifting, the sound of metal groaning under her. "Then why don't you?" The air between them grew heavy. His throat tightened, words caught behind his teeth. She was daring him, testing not just his courage, but his resolve. "I don't know," he admitted. The truth hung naked in the space between them, dangerous and raw. Eshara rose, moving toward him with slow, deliberate steps. Each one echoed against the factory floor, sending vibrations through his chest. When she stopped before him, her shadow swallowed him whole. "Your kind fears power," she murmured, her voice low and husky. "But you—" Her hand brushed along his jaw, fingers strong yet careful. "You look at me differently." Kylian's breath hitched. Her touch was warm, her palm rough with battle scars, yet her fingers lingered as though afraid of breaking him. "I should fear you," he whispered. Her smirk widened, but her eyes softened in a way he hadn't seen before. "Perhaps you should." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was alive, charged. He could hear his own pulse in his ears, feel the heat radiating from her body, smell the faint metallic sweetness of her skin. She was too close, too overwhelming. And yet, he didn't move away. She circled him like a predator, testing prey, but there was no strike. Instead, she leaned in close, her lips brushing near his ear as she whispered, "Tell me, Kylian, do you want me to stop?" His body froze. Every nerve screamed at him to say yes, to end this unbearable tension. But his lips refused to obey. When he didn't answer, she chuckled softly, a sound both mocking and seductive. She pressed a hand to his chest again, firmer this time, forcing him back against a wall. The cold concrete met his shoulders as her weight pinned him there, not crushing, but inescapable. "Your silence tells me everything," she murmured. Kylian's breath came shallow, his chest tight beneath her palm. He wanted to protest, to remind himself this was wrong, forbidden. She wasn't human. She wasn't safe. But the truth blazed hotter than fear. He wanted her. Her face hovered inches from his, close enough that he could see the flecks of gold swirling in her emerald eyes. She studied him, waiting, testing, savoring the moment. And for the first time, Kylian realized the most terrifying thing about Eshara wasn't her strength or her weight. It was the pull he felt toward her. Because no matter how much he told himself he should resist, every part of him leaned closer. And she knew it. The storm outside had grown violent, rattling the broken factory windows with every gust. Thunder cracked across the sky, but inside the cavernous hall, another storm raged. Quieter, hotter, more dangerous. Eshara's hand remained on Kylian's chest, pressing him against the wall, her weight reminding him of his helplessness. Yet for the first time, he didn't feel trapped. He felt consumed. "Kylian," she whispered, his name curling from her lips like a challenge, like a secret. Her breath washed over him, warm, steady, intoxicating. He wanted to move, to push her away, to remind himself of the thousand reasons why this was wrong, but his body betrayed him, leaning into her heat, drawn closer by a force far stronger than reason. "You are fragile," she said, her voice low, her forehead nearly touching his. "But you do not break. Why?" His throat tightened, words tangled in his chest, but he forced them out, voice hoarse. "Maybe. I don't want to break." That answer seemed to ignite something inside her. Her lips parted, her nostrils flared, and her body pressed harder against his. The sheer weight of her made his knees tremble, his breath hitch. But it wasn't pain. It was surrender. She growled softly, a sound that vibrated through his bones, and in one swift motion, she pushed harder, climbing onto him, straddling his hips with a force that left no escape. Concrete scraped against his back, but all he felt was her, every inch of her weight settling over him, claiming him. "I warned you," she murmured, her voice dripping with heat. "I told you I'd crush you." Kylian's pulse roared in his ears. He should have resisted. He should have begged her to stop. But his lips betrayed him, curving into a trembling smile. "Then do it." The air between them shattered. Eshara's eyes blazed, not with fury this time, but with something far more dangerous, longing. She lowered herself fully, her strength overwhelming yet deliberate, her massive form pinning him completely. His breath caught, his body straining beneath hers, but the fight was gone. What replaced it was hunger. Her lips hovered above his, close enough that he could feel their heat, close enough that every nerve in his body screamed for her to close the distance. Her hands slid from his chest to his jaw, fingers curling firmly, holding him still. He was powerless, but in this helplessness, he discovered something terrifying. He didn't want freedom. For the first time, Eshara's voice softened, not cruel, not mocking, but almost vulnerable. "Do you want this, human?" Kylian's answer came without hesitation. "Yes." The storm outside roared, lightning splitting the sky, as if the heavens themselves reacted to the confession. And then finally the dam broke. Her lips crashed against his, fierce and consuming. The kiss was not gentle. It was fire and thunder, dominance and surrender all at once. Her weight pinned him, her strength caged him, but the intensity that passed between them was no longer a battle. It was a surrender neither could undo. Every breath, every heartbeat, every sound in the world beyond that moment faded. There was no earth, no war, no crash, no fear, only her body pressed against his, and the raw truth of what they had become. Eshara had promised to crush him. Instead, she had claimed him. And Kylian realized with startling clarity, this was not defeat. This was the beginning of something far more dangerous than fear. Desire unchained. The storm had passed. Rain still dripped from the cracked ceiling of the factory, but the thunder had rolled away, leaving only silence. The air smelled of wet steel and ozone, mixed with something warmer, something alive. Their breath, their closeness, the unshakable memory of what had just happened. Kylian sat with his back against the wall, his chest rising and falling, still trying to steady himself. Beside him, Eshara lingered, her broad frame slouched in a way he hadn't seen before. The warrior mask had slipped, and for the first time she seemed human. She didn't look at him at first. Her fingers traced the cracks in the floor, her jaw tense as if wrestling with words she had never spoken aloud. Finally, she broke the silence. "You should hate me," she said quietly. "I threatened you. I pinned you. I could have ended you in an instant." Kylian turned his head, studying her profile. The fierce alien warrior, the same one who once swore to crush him, now looked like someone caught between fear and hope. He let out a faint, breathless laugh. "Yeah, you could have," he said, "but you didn't." Her gaze flicked to him, sharp and searching. "Why do you trust me?" He hesitated, the truth heavy on his tongue. He could have lied, said it was strategy, said he had no choice. But after everything they had crossed, lies felt meaningless. "Because I've seen you," he answered. "Not just the warrior, not just the alien. I've seen the part of you that doesn't want to be alone. And maybe that's the part that sees me too." Eshara's lips parted, but no words came. Her eyes softened, glowing less like embers of rage and more like coals of warmth. She exhaled slowly as though releasing a weight she'd carried for far too long. "You are a strange human," she whispered. Kylian smirked faintly. "I'll take that as a compliment." For a moment, silence settled again. Not heavy this time, but calm, comforting. Then, as if drawn by gravity, Eshara shifted closer, her massive frame leaning against his. The warmth of her body radiated into him, heavy yet reassuring, like a shield against the empty world outside. "I don't know what tomorrow brings," she admitted. "If my enemies find me, if your people discover me," her voice faltered, but her eyes burned steady. "But I will not leave you, Kylian. Not now." He swallowed hard. the weight of her words sinking deep. He reached up tentatively, placing his hand against hers. Her fingers dwarfed his, rough and scarred. But when they intertwined, it felt like two broken pieces finally clicking into place. "Then we face it together," he said softly. The alien warrior who once threatened to crush him now leaned her forehead against his, closing her eyes. The gesture was simple, but it carried the weight of everything unspoken: trust, desire, and something dangerously close to love. And in that moment, Kylian knew this was more than survival, more than forbidden temptation. This was the start of something neither Earth nor the stars could tear apart. Beyond fear, beyond chains, beyond the boundaries of their worlds. Together they had stepped into forever.